Share screen.
Tyler, are you the new Econ Club president?
Well, I was the Econ Club president this year, but I'm graduating, so
Okay.
we have a new president, but he's got class, so I can't be. All right.
How many people do we have in the audience? A couple people out there?
We have 5 people in the audience, and then
Whoa.
yeah.
Okay.
All right. So it is, what time is it? It is 5:05, so I'm gonna get started. All right, so hello everyone. Thanks for coming. Today is our 4th and final general meeting of the semester. It is my final general meeting as president. So I know you all are very sad, but please keep it together during the meeting. Today we're very fortunate. We have 2 guest speakers here with us. Hardik Dalal is here and Robert Heitz is here. They are both PNW alumni, and they're going to be talking to us in a little bit about what they're doing now. So another thing, I ordered pizza. It's supposed to get here at 5:15. I ordered it from Domino's, and the bioscience building wasn't an option when I chose the delivery, and only had the library building. So I may have to leave in about 10 minutes and go chase down the pizza guy. But we have some of our new officers here who can take over for me. During this time, one of our guest speakers should be talking, so you guys won't even miss me. Any questions before we get started? All right. Oh, just a quick question before I keep going. Robert and Hardik, I'm recording this meeting. We uploaded it to our YouTube channel. Are you guys okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So yes, our agenda for tonight, I just need to go over some housekeeping and some upcoming events, and then we'll have our presentations, and then we'll follow each presentation with a short little Q&A if you guys have any questions. And that's how this will work. So for the upcoming events, we are almost at the end of the semester. We've got the rest of this week, and then we have 1 more week of instruction, and then it's finals. So we're almost there. Last meeting, we talked about having our awards banquet. Some background on that. So I put in the SSF request for all of that, and then Student Life yelled at me and said that we didn't specify an awards banquet in our initial request. So then I pulled up our request and I highlighted the paragraphs that said that we did. And so they approved that part, but it took a couple of days and set us back. So originally we were targeting this Friday for the awards banquet. Obviously that's not going to happen now. So then I was thinking maybe next Friday, and I was wondering what people thought of that. Can anyone not do next Friday? That's the better question.
That's fine.
Okay. And I'll send out an email. There's a lot of people here or not here today, so I'll have to ask about that. And I still have to talk to some of my current officers about that. So, all right, so we're figuring that out. Student life seems to be better these last 2 weeks, so maybe it won't take as long as to get everything approved. The stock market game that we've been playing this semester, that ends this Friday. So make your final trades to win. I think Aniri's winning right now, and that's kind of unacceptable. So someone has to beat her.
I hope no one had Netflix.
Yeah, Netflix went and shot themselves in the foot this week. So, yes, yeah. So that ends on Friday. You'll know who won. Oh, who's here? You found us. Yes. Thank you.
No problem. Well, have a good one.
Yep, you too. All right. Plates are in my car. Oops. But we have pizza. Oh, there. All right, so we have a limited amount of 8 plates and pizza, so please help yourself. But be very economical with the plate. Sorry about that. Yes. So the stock market game ends this Friday. It ends at the whatever time the market closes here. So 3:30. So yeah. Sound good? Next Thursday is the PNW Day of Giving. We talked about this a little bit last meeting. Way back in January, they were asking clubs if we wanted to participate, and I didn't know, so I said yes, figuring that we could cancel if we didn't want to participate. So this is basically just a donation drive for the club. One of the things I was thinking is that with how spotty student life has been, maybe it would be a good idea to get rid of our dependence on them, or at least lessen our dependence on them. So I'll be putting out some information about that probably in the wrap-up email. But if you have like friends or family that might be interested in participating, now would be a good time maybe to let them know. Any questions on that? All right, and then Preview PNW is Saturday, April 30th. It's basically an event where the new incoming students tour campus, and different organizations are putting on different events. So I'll be there tabling, and I think Jake will be there. Maybe Frida, I don't know. I told her to come, so we'll see. But if any of you guys want to join and hang out with us while we table, we'll be there. That's Saturday, the 30th. Yeah.
You know,
Right.
Jordan is doing some of the same stuff Steph does.
Dr. Mitra, yes, you raised your hand.
Yes. Hi, Tyler. Hi, Hardik. Hi, Robert. Thanks for coming. Just one announcement. Since you were talking about inviting students at the Day of Giving or wherever, I think that it may be a good idea also for them, if they're interested, to join the award recipients at the banquet that we are going to have on August 28th. And that could be done through each of the students. You know, I don't know if there is a limit to the number of guests, but it will give, I think that our club members may be interested to, join to see, how the other students are being recognized and so on. So Taylor Kroon will be speaking on behalf of the econ discipline. So she is the guest speaker from economics. There will be guest speaker from the other disciplines. Each discipline will be showcasing a video from the club members. So last year Taylor did that. So I don't know if you guys will have a time to also do that. Just a brief video of the econ minor and the econ club activities, and then inviting some of the club officers or other members. So sending an email saying that, I don't know which is a better way to do it, but it has to be done by sending the email to Heather Benson. Okay.
So
Thank
do you
you.
mean like I invite some of the members as my guests? Is that how you're suggesting doing it?
Yeah, I don't know if there is a limit. So if one of you can contact Heather and say that, is there, any limit to how many guests we can bring? So today is actually the last day, but I hope that Farida, if you could at least, contact Jacob and Jack, since they may not
But
check
Jacob
their
and Jack are
email.
actually here today.
Since they may not check their email, I'm also in touch with Wendy just to let her know, because I think you may have their contact information. Sorry to take so much time, but I really don't want econ to be not represented at the banquet, because I have been totally out of the loop and they have a list of recipients for other disciplines and not economics. Even though I have notified you, they said it's my fault that I didn't ask you to contact Heather. So that's how it went this afternoon. So yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Yes, any questions on any of that? Cool. All right, well, that's all I have for you. Now I'd like to pass it over to whichever one of our guest speakers would like to go first. And then,
I can go first.
okay, and then, so do you have a slideshow or?
I do.
Okay.
I just put together some slides that are sharing some of the slides I used for last year, actually, during COVID pandemic time. So I felt like those were probably useful. It looks like I can't share.
You should be able to now.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So let me pull up something else.
All right, Hardik Dalal, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler. I'll just do a quick intro. I'm Hardik Dalal. I'm Vice President of Finance for Central Chicagoland at Advocate Aurora. That consists of 3 hospitals: Lutheran General in the Arlington Heights area, Illinois Masonic Medical Center, which sits in Lakeview, and then Good Samaritan Hospital, which is part of Downers Grove area. So those are 3 hospitals that I provide oversight for from a finance standpoint. Just want to take everyone through the journey of what COVID did, or the impact COVID had on a healthcare organization. And it was kind of nice, being asked to kind of share this experience got me thinking about what really took place over the last 12 to 24 months. And, I wanted to highlight this specific time frame, which is right when COVID happened, between March and April last year. A couple of things that took place as soon as COVID happened initially was the hospitals were organizing what's called the HICS. It's an Incident Command Centers. And that basically means a major urgent organization that the government across the country has asked hospitals to organize. Health agencies are being asking hospitals to organize it. And one component of that is finance. So finance sits on those committees. And essentially, it's a way to stop all daily activities and convert the entire hospitals into these HICS committees. So there's verticals in supply chain, clinical operations, and then finance. So finance roles that we have traditionally followed in the hospitals, they completely change. So the HICS were kicked off and structured probably in the middle of March, around like March 20th, when the world shut down. And from there, we really started to see some major impact on a few things. We saw volume really disappear. Patients stopped coming to the hospitals overnight, and the patients that were coming to the hospitals potentially all had COVID. And really, there's no way for us to test it as frequently as people were walking through the door. And at the time, we weren't sure, from a clinical standpoint, how the care should be delivered for these patients. And we started to see a lot of team members get sick at the hospital. And we saw tons of clinical team members getting sick. But where I really saw a big change or opportunities was around support areas. You see respiratory therapy, CT or imaging departments, EVS, food and nutrition, the people that bring the tray to their floors. None of these folks have ever operated in an environment of what COVID was doing to healthcare at the time. And so we had tremendous amount of shortage of staff members at that time. And people started getting sick right around this time between these 2 months. And this is just the one example of an income statement and volume projections, volumes from a hospital, Illinois Masonic Medical Center in the city, in Lakeview. And so we were operating in January and February, roughly around 1,149 patients a month. And in March, that dropped a little bit because of the impact the last 2 weeks had. But then you can see how big of an impact April has. April was probably one of the worst months we have ever had in the history of Advocate Aurora financially. And I'll walk through some of the other impacts. And so as the volume dropped for us, then it created an issue on the revenue side. And then you can see our net revenue dropped drastically. We were at 48 million in a month, January and February. March was coincidentally actually okay, because I think we really didn't see an impact in March. But in April, when we had a full 4 weeks of that, we saw the revenue drastically drop, and you can see how much of an impact it can have on a performance. I want to go over to the expenses next. So the expenses really stayed relatively flat, as you can see, 43 million, 43 million, 41.4 million. And the reason the expenses stayed flat is because labor expense is over 60% of a total expenses, and labor stayed relatively flat because we wanted to make sure as an organization we were paying all the clinical team members. We continue to pay them even if they're sick and they have to be at home, or they're asked to not come to the office because of safety issues. If you recall, a lot of health clinics, doctors' offices were all shut down during March and April in 2020. But all those team members, part of Advocate Aurora facilities, were actually paid during that time frame. So we had an impact on labor staying flat. And in addition to that, we started seeing an increase in supplies because people were starting to order extra amounts of gloves and masks and surgical supplies because there was a shortage across the country, and especially around gloves and masks. And so we saw a lot of expense increases in this period while not having the revenue to offset it. And then our net operating income, we were at 5.3 million positive to 2.2 million positive to a negative 5.2 million. So we saw completely 100% negative impact in April. And you can see our operating margin going from 11% to negative 14.3%. So it's a huge impact. And then from there, we started to see some of the changes take place. A lot of our services shut down in this month, especially in April. We went to a completely shutdown mode across all hospitals. The only surgeries that were being done were anything that was coming through the emergency room that absolutely had to happen, like heart transplants or life or death situations. No electives were being scheduled. None of the volume, everything was all emergent, urgent cases and patients in the hospital. And then we have this next phase of the evolution of COVID was reactivation. So we reactivated a lot of our surgeries between March, April, May, June, July, and then on to August through December. The first bucket of these months, which is March or May through July, we reactivated a lot of our services as we learned and clinically how to care for COVID patients. We developed protocols and processes. We learned how to test the patient at the right time so we can actually get them into the operating room and start to do procedures. We started getting clinical team members back onto the hospital campus and make sure we put protocols in place and proper PPEs in their hands, which is personal protective equipment, like your shields that you see in today's environment, masks and gloves and full hazard suits. Those equipments did not exist in a clinical person's hands between March and April. So by the time we reactivate in the next 3 months, we make sure that the team members had that equipment. And you can see the expenses started to go up a little bit in that time frame. But we want to make sure the safety is provided. They're operating in a safe environment more than anything else. And our volume started to come back. We saw about 1,075 on average cases for the first 3 months as we reactivated components of our services. In the OR cases is another indication. You can see our pre-COVID were 1,064 cases a month. And you can see that we dropped that down to 161 in a single month. I mean, it was some of the scariest times I ever operated a hospital. And as we reactivated, we were closer to 707 on an average month. And then moving forward, we were in the 966, and you can see that progression going forward back into the thousands, if not better. And then some of these other ones are procedural areas as well. You can see 147 cath lab procedures down to 23. IR procedures, interventional radiology procedures, going from 167 down to 81. And then deliveries, this is actually interesting. So deliveries were never impacted by COVID. So 133 deliveries, 131. And as you go forward, we saw, up and down trend taking place. So these are some high level informations related to how COVID impacted us out of the gate. As we went to reactivation, the services, we had to flip the switch back on, get team members to come back on campus, make sure they had proper coverage and proper safety procedures in place. And then we continued to reactivate all services back into the late months of December of 2020. And then as the 2021 kicked off, created more challenges for us, different types of challenges. We went through multiple surges in the year of 2021. And you can see some of our volumes in the OR cases really go up and down here. 995, we started out the year really soft, and then we started to pick back up a little. And then we saw a surge in the second half of the year, where we saw a dip in volume in these 3 months, and then picked right back up in September and on. So really just the wave that we saw from a COVID case standpoint, we see similar trends in the OR cases, but we never deactivated any surgeries after the April 2020 at this hospital. And that was something that we take a lot of pride on. A lot of hospitals around the country actually shut down multiple times throughout the year in 2021. We were fortunate enough not to be in that position. And then our revenue on the top line also grew. You can see going from 141 to 165 and then into the 180s remainder of the year. So we had really, really strong financial performance on the top line as we worked and operated in a COVID environment. A couple of things that we're facing with today in 2022, it's a different challenge. It's a completely different challenge than we faced last year or in 2020, which is related to nursing labor staff. Nursing team members across all areas. You look at the operating room, you look at the emergency room, they have all been burned out. So a lot of organizations, including Advocate Aurora, have given out multiple pay practices to keep the staff members, continue to have them working. There were multiple bonus strategies given out to 70,000+ employees to keep them to stay on the hospital campuses. But we saw a significant amount of turnover. Earlier this year, January and February were the most challenging staffing related months. A lot of hospitals face a similar challenge where nurses just left the health systems to work at another hospital or quit overall, or become traveling nurses where they're getting a premium to travel around and work at different hospitals. So our expenses have gone up this year on salaries and wages a little over 12%. So if you think about it, if our operating margin is roughly around 10 to 11% in a hospital, but if your salary expenses increase by 12%, you're seeing a huge impact. You're basically washing away any operating margin you had for the patients you cared for. Those are just some key highlights I wanted to talk through today. I'll pause to see if there are any questions or comments.
One particular concern that some of my students in the College of Nursing are dealing with is with regard to the budget and facility planning. They are actually not managers, they are more nurses, but they would like to know, and since this presentation is being recorded, I think you have already mentioned that, but few challenges of the hospitals with regard to the COVID and how to prepare in terms of budget planning the revenue and the cost factors, as well as, in terms of overall management. If you could share, I think you will probably share some of the challenges based on the experience to be able to better prepare
Yeah.
for the next normal. Thank you.
That's a good question. So let's go back to June of last year. We started our budget process between June, we finalized it somewhere in September. So during budgeting timeframe last year, and even going back to this time in the prior year, if you look at 2021, beginning of this timeframes, we actually built our budget for 2022 in this year with the assumption that COVID was going to be gone. I'm sorry, 2020. So in 2020, we built our budget with the assumption that COVID was going to be completely gone by June of 21. Zero impact of COVID starting 21 and on, June of 2021 and on. And then when June of 21 came, obviously COVID was here to stay. And so we had to really think differently and try to fit the increased pressure of expenses into our cost structure into the next budget cycle. So for 22, we were much more cautious, spread out COVID throughout the course of the year. We expected labor increases and premium pay practices as a expense category. And board approved that strategy because team members were the key center of all of our decision making. And so operating margin globally, I think it's something I want to highlight, is that prior to COVID, in pre-COVID world, the operating margin for Advocate Aurora as a system was roughly around 3.75%. And the budget built for 2020 was also, budget for 2020 included 3.275%. We performed well below that. But as we go into 21, those expectations came down and operating margin was 2.5% because of what we learned in 2020. And then when we're building a 2022 budget in 21, the operating margin expectations became 1.75%. So we have continued to see deterioration in operating margin, but the offset is that we want to make sure that team members and the clinical team, specifically nurses, are paid appropriately, and we're absorbing all the impacts and lessons learned along the way. Having said that, the shortages on nurses and agency that we have experienced this year so far have far exceeded our budget expectations. So I am a little nervous going into the budget cycle in come June timeframe, because if we're using our actual experiences this year, operating margins have to come down one more time again next year. And I'm not sure if the board will have the appetite for that. But it's a challenge. I think one thing that I will say that's really helpful is to stay at hospitals that are extremely busy. And when you're busy, volume tends to help solve your problems in some fashion or matter. And, I've been fortunate enough to be at a hospital system that the 3 hospitals have been very busy. Any other questions? That was a good one.
Has inflation had any impact on?
That's a good one. No, it's actually an interesting one. So inflation, the reason I laugh is because I just submitted a board presentation for Pet Tower at Masonic campus for $350 million. And one of the board members asked that question related to inflation, is what assumptions on inflation did you use? And, as an organization, we use 2% on everything. So I used 2%, but the caveat there was this year's inflation has been 6.9%. So in 2025, the assumption is that, are we going to be at 2% inflation year over year? Or do we say 6.9%, and then we see certain amount of inflation? So I build the assumptions that inflation will go back down to 2%, only because this is not sustainable. I mean, if we are going to operate under the assumption that inflation is going to be north of 5% year over year, we are in a much bigger challenge ahead of us than some of these assumptions that we see on the hospital budget side. There's going to be some massive changes in the economical changes if inflation is north of 5% year over year. But I had to get it approved, so I used 2%. Any other questions?
How are things looking now with labor shortages, especially nurses?
They're getting better. Two things are happening. The agencies that are recruiting nurses to come for travel jobs, that trend has decreased. And the hospitals looking for agency staff members has decreased. And I think overall hospitals are starting to pay nurses at a higher rate than they have in the past. So the average wage for a nurse in the hospital is going up, and therefore the demand for them to leave to go to an agency is coming down. It's a pure supply and demand mechanism at its finest. It's expensive, but that's what's going on now. I had a conversation with a friend of mine this past weekend. I was in Michigan, and he works for an agency, nursing agency. And, you know, I was kind of getting an argument with him, you know, that the field you're in is causing me a lot of pain. And I said, why doesn't a hospital just create its own HR department where we have our own nursing and our own agency team? And I was trying to understand the process. I said, how do you get a nurse? And he said, well, we don't go calling nurses until a hospital comes to me and says, we need nurses. And I said, interesting. So the hospitals are creating your demand. He said, yes. And I'm like, could you talk about a self-inflicted wound? That, you know, a hospital is creating a demand for an agency to go out to that hospital's nurses and ask them if they want to work for an agency and come back right back to the same hospital paying 30% premium rate. So I don't know. It's interesting how this stuff works.
I just spent on a 3 days question.
You might have to get closer.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's hard to hear.
I did spend on 3 days question. Recently, there's been a few regulations, and such I've heard from one of my neighbors who works at Silver Cross. I say slow, it's been in the news about COVID regulations and with vaccination and the collective of many healthcare workers. Do you think that does that add to the labor crisis that is being currently to the labor shortage problem of the hospitals, or is those effects minimal?
Which specific regulations are you referring to?
Regulations enacted by various states that healthcare workers should be vaccinated.
Oh, vaccinated. I would say yes. I think that impacts the labor shortages. I think it's created a culture at the hospitals where a team member had to decide which side of the fence they were on. I think that was the beginning of the split. I don't think I would assume that it did not have a big enough impact on the current shortage of staff. It has some, but not completely. You know, Advocate Aurora Law ended up losing, I think total, they have 77,000 employees. And I think at the end of it, due to vaccination status requirements, I think we only lost less than 500 nurses or team members. So I would say that the number is small, directly related to vaccination, but I would assume that the clinical team members started picking sides from a culture standpoint. Maybe. I stay in finance for that reason, though.
All right, thank you.
That's a good question. Any other questions? Great. Well, thank you. It's great chatting with everyone today.
All right. Is that, are you done?
I'm done. Yeah.
Okay, just making sure.
Didn't want to cut you off. All right. Thank you very much. Let's see. Are you guys okay with the sound, or should I play with?
Thank you, Hardik, for taking the time and coming to the presentation. And one of the things that I am doing in this week's class is talk about budget planning. And so I would like to share your video with your permission to my students in the nursing program. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, Thank you.
Thank you. Nice meeting you, everyone.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Yes,
Thanks,
thank you.
Hardik.
Thank you.
Okay, give me a second. If you don't mind waiting just a second,
Sure.
Robert, so this isn't the room we're normally in, and so the tech is a little different, and
Okay.
we're having some troubles getting you over the sound system, which is supposed to be in the room.
Okay.
Don't you have to
You guys
go?
at the Calumet campus or are you guys at Westville?
We're, yeah, Hammond.
Oh, okay. Nice. Oh, man.
But
Okay.
we're in the new building. And so
Oh, okay.
they've
I
changed.
got thrown off there on the room number that you gave me. I thought you guys were at Westville or I would have came over there.
Oh, yeah.
That's
I'm
all
sorry.
right.
That's a new building that we have, the
Yeah,
bioscience
yeah.
building. Yeah.
The one that they put in front of
Yeah.
in front of the library, so it doesn't look like a prison anymore. Every single photo that they have of Purdue Northwest is now of that building. That's funny.
Yeah, it's definitely nicer building. I can.
Doesn't seem to have worked. Can you still hear us?
Yeah.
Someone say something on Zoom?
Hello.
Oh, wait, no, I heard something.
Hello.
Can someone say something again?
Hello.
Oh, okay, there we go. It works.
All right.
All right, so let me. Yeah, okay. Moving back over here.
All right.
Okay, so we can now hear you much better. And
Okay, great.
yeah, so you should be able to share your screen if you need to, and yeah, take it away, Robert, everyone.
All right. All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Let me figure out how to do that. Okay, PowerPoint. Yeah. Let me know if you guys can see the screen. Yeah, good. Okay. And I can see you guys, and it's been a while since I've done this one. Okay. Okay. I guess I will give you guys I'll give you guys a quick introduction on myself. My name is Robert Heitz. Back in 2019, I was taking one of Amlan's courses, and it was like two of his online courses, micro and macroeconomics, because I wanted to get an economics minor. And he goes, no, don't take my courses. I want you to do research with me. So I ended up doing research with him that year. And then he said to take over or revive the economics club. So I tried to revive it. There was only a couple students in it. It looks like it's pretty jam-packed now, which I love it. That's great.
Well, Robert,
so-
you missed one thing. Sorry to interrupt. Don't give the students the impression that I told you not to take economics. In fact,
no.
you took graduate level economics because you were too matured. So you took Professor McGrath's econ class.
That's true. I did. I took Professor McGrath's graduate econ, and then I ended up getting my master's in economics too. So I didn't skirt past the economics. I just took a higher level because Amlan told me don't take both of them at the same time because this is the lower level. We might as well just take the higher level. But yeah, I ended up going to Purdue University out in Lafayette to get my master's in economics, and then I came back. I am now in Munster, Indiana, and I work as a financial advisor. I don't know if you guys know anything about financial advisors, but I've got my Series 7, which allows me to sell securities, and my Series 66, which allows me to give advice. And then I have my Indiana life and health insurance license. And right now I'm currently studying for the Certified Financial Planner exam, the CFP which takes about a year to do. So I am right in the beginning of that. But anyways, I'm going to give you guys the personal finance 101. I know I hope this one is as fun as the healthcare. I'm sure a lot of this stuff is going to be really simple and you guys might know some of it. But if you guys have any questions, go ahead and I'm trying to make this big so I can see the entire, okay, that's better. So I can see if you guys have any questions. And yeah, I hope this one is fun. I tried to make it as fun as possible, as basic as possible, but still interesting. So I'll give you guys the lowdown here. All right. So first off is spending. You know, you want to make good decisions, use a budget, research any type of products that you are, looking to buy. You want to definitely compare prices. And then in economics, you guys know about opportunity costs. Let's see here. You want to keep any receipts, any warranties. This is going to help you later down the line, 2 or 3 years when, your couch doesn't work anymore and you still have the warranty for it. And then, returning any faulty items. The beginning of this is going to be very, very simple. It's kind of just like a fun, teaching you guys. And then you definitely want to use credit wisely. So the next one is building your credit reports. So I don't know if you guys know, but there's 3 main credit bureaus in the United States: Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. And you can actually get your credit score from them once a year. So I use Chase, and Chase will tell me what they think my credit score is, but that's always a guess. So you never actually know until you're checking with one of these companies, and that will give you your FICO score. All right, if you want to build your FICO score, and this is what FICO stands for. It's the Fair Isaac Company credit score. The FICO scores have a bunch of different components to them. They range from 300 to 850, and anybody who's above 600 is considered, I think it's 600 or 700 is considered someone who has good credit. And the credit, when you're going for a car, when you're going for a mortgage, we just my wife and I just bought this house about a year ago, and they're checking your credit. The higher scores allow you to have lower interest rates. So the higher your score, you can get a lower interest rate on your automobile. You can get a lower interest rate if you're refinancing your student loans, which I just did. Lower interest rate on your house. So recently we just got our house, and it was 3% back in July of 2021. I just had a client go for a new mortgage, and theirs is 5% right now. So, that's why I asked kind of about inflation and, the Fed possibly raising rates, and now things are kind of getting out of control. But here are the what your FICO scores are based on. So 35% is your payment history. 30% is the amount owed. Length of the credit history is 15%. Any types of new credit is 10%. And then the type of credit you're using is 10%. So, the main thing here is any of your credit cards, any of your student loans, always, always, always pay it on time. If you have one missed credit card payment, one missed student loan, anything, that will absolutely shred through your credit score. And then another thing, if you have credit cards that were open for a long time, somebody says, hey, you know what, go ahead, just close the credit card because you've paid it off, you don't want to use it anymore, and you've had this credit card for 5-10 years, that's going to be a big impact to your credit score as well. So those are kind of like the 2 big ones that I tell people. Okay, let's see what we got. Okay, for savings, you really want to consume less than you're earning. These are real simple ones. You can have savings accounts, CDs, savings bonds, anything to kind of get you into the saving mode. The big thing, though, is what I tell people, it's investing. So, it was said that compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. So different things you can do for investing. You know, the very basic way is open up a savings account. What you guys, it seems like you guys are doing, at least you're playing the stock market game. You kind of get to see what's happening with these companies. You know, why did Netflix drop? It was 35% earlier today when I was checking it. Why did Facebook drop 25% a few months ago? And, you know, or boo-hoo, Zuckerberg lost a few billion. So you can also buy bonds. You can invest in mutual funds. And, you know, you really want to see what are your short and long-term goals. You know, do you want to retire at 30? Do you want to retire at 40? Are you okay working until you're 70? That's the main thing. Then you can kind of decide what your risk profile is. So go over a little bit about the fundamentals of investing. You know, how much money do you want to accumulate? You know, different people are okay with just having a couple $100,000 because they don't spend that much money. You know, how long is it going to take? How much risk are you willing to assume? So I don't know if you guys knew, but GameStop, AMC, BlackBerry, big old short squeezes back in early 2021, and people were making a ton of money. You know, deep value over there who made $50 million. I don't know if you guys are on Reddit, follow Wall Street Bets. That is a funny subreddit. Let's see here. You know, are your goals reasonable? If you're the type of person who is going to make $100,000 a year and you want to save up 25 million, you know, I don't know if that's going to be the way to go. But, you know, you have to set reasonable goals, and can you make the necessary sacrifices? And then, you know, exactly what would the consequences be if you don't reach your goals? You know, are you going to have to not buy the second Lamborghini and just stick with the red one and not the green one? Or are you going to be, you know, homeless on the street trying to beg for money? Okay, we'll skip through a couple of these because I don't want to keep you guys too long. All right, so, you know, big things like Dave Ramsey says, you know, you want to balance your budget, make sure that you have an emergency fund, and then make sure, I mean, very, very important, make sure you have adequate insurance. Insurance will absolutely tank you if you don't have the proper insurance. If your home is not insured, if your car is not insured, if you have your spouse has jewelry, watches that are very expensive and they get stolen, make sure it's insured. It's going to cost a little bit of extra money, but never hurts to have it insured. Okay, so then of course you guys know about employer-sponsored retirement plans, 401ks, biggest ones. We also have 403bs, 457, depending on if you're working for the government or for, you know, nonprofits. You know, gifts, inheritances, how are these going to play into your portfolio? When can you access this money? So your 401k, more than likely, you're not going to be able to access that before 59 and a half without incurring major tax consequences. So I'm not sure what you guys know about stocks, but stocks are an actual ownership in a company. So if you're looking at Warren Buffett and he, you know, if you look at his portfolio and he says, you know, I own a lot, you know, obviously a lot of Berkshire, but he owns a lot of Geico. He owns a lot of Dairy Queen. He had a ton of airline stocks and then he sold them. So Elon Musk just recently bought 9% in Twitter. So that 9%, he owns 9% of the company. So when I buy a Twitter stock, I'll own, you know, 0.00001% of the company. So I own basically nothing, but I still own part of the company. And there's different things that you're going to want to buy stocks for. So Coca-Cola, people are going to buy Coca-Cola because they want the dividends. It has I think it's like a 3% dividend right now. People want, you know, so older people are going to want to buy Coca-Cola because they want more money. So dividends are paying you, you know, cash. Price appreciation. People are buying Tesla because they want the stock to go up. Tesla doesn't pay a dividend because they think that the money that they get is better spent putting it back into the company so that they can increase the price. And then you have to check at the level of risk. So, you know, Coca-Cola, big blue chip company, not going to be as risky as buying, I think Portillo's. All you guys are local. Portillo's just had an IPO a few months ago where they're considering an IPO. That's very risky. You know, they've got only a few Portillo's open. But if Portillo's takes off, then you're going to cash in handsomely. Okay, so mutual funds are kind of like a basket of goods. So it's like a stock with stocks in several companies. So you'll get different types of mutual funds. You might say, I want an energy mutual fund. So they're going to have a bunch of different types of energy companies. You might have a technology mutual fund that has, you know, Apple, Microsoft, any of the big giants, the FANG companies. And they have such a huge variety of mutual funds that they have to offer. They've got bond mutual funds. They've got tons of them, and they are less risk due to diversification. If you buy one single Tesla stock and Tesla goes out of business in 10 years, then you're out of all your money. You know, Hertz just filed for bankruptcy, you know, a few months ago or a year ago. And if you had Hertz stock, you were kind of screwed. And yeah. So, I mean, you can obviously lose money too on mutual funds. 2008, people were losing money on mutual funds. It's just they're less likely to lose money because of the diversification. So you guys kind of know what bonds are. Bonds are you're loaning money to either the federal government or you're loaning money to a company. Very safe way to store your money. They have mutual funds of bond funds, so you can get those too. Yeah, you know, what influences do you have on the market? There's war, Ukraine right now, things dropped. That's a great time to buy when, you know, everything is dropping because of, possible short-term influences, emotions, politics, the actual economy, natural disasters. When we have earthquakes, hurricanes, anything, stock market instantly drops. That's like the prime time to buy. And then, you know, what causes the influence the price of an actual stock? So you have conditions in the industry, changes in technology. Why is Xerox not the powerhouse it once was? You know, why is Blockbuster? They only have one Blockbuster left in Oregon, and I don't even know if that Blockbuster is doing well. They had two. One was in Australia, one in Oregon. One in Australia closed down last year. So now there's just one. You know, health of the actual company, supply and demand. I mean, these are what's going to, influence the stock. And like I said before, to build wealth, you want to start early. Give your money time to grow. Compounding interest is going to be the largest impact in your entire life. So right now, I put away a little bit of money for my future child. You know, we don't even have a child. Wife is not pregnant, but we have opened up an account for the child when they are born in a few years, so that they can have a college fund that's set. And, you know, in a few years, they should be able to, by the time they're college age, their entire college should be paid off, because we're, you know, assuming compound interest is going to grow the accounts. You know, I'll try to speed through a couple of these. So, you know, you want to buy and hold. If you look at people who are trading, day trading, they end up losing a lot of money because your emotions take a lot out of you, and you think that you can beat the market, but you really can't beat the market. So don't try to day trade 2020. And I lost a lot of money doing that. Market was going up. I said, I'm going to stop when school starts in September for graduate school. And then I got greedy. I did not stop. And I ended up losing all of the money that I had in profits. I had a ton of money in profits. I put in there too. And the stock market's a stock market game. You know, the company loses 50% of its value. To go back to its original point, you need to grow by 100%. People think, well, if it loses 50, you just gain 50, but that's not how it works. You lose 50, you know, you're going from 100 to 50. To go from 50 to 100, you need to gain 100%. And people don't fully understand that. CDs, saving, bonds, stocks, you know, don't put it all into one stock. That's the best thing I can give you to answer as much as I possibly can. If you guys have any, any questions, it doesn't have to be about my presentation, go ahead and ask, whatever you guys want to. Come on, you guys have to have some questions. Oh, let me stop sharing here. I think you cut out there for a second. Okay, go ahead and ask that again.
Can you hear us all right?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, you were having some internet troubles a little bit at the end of your presentation, so you were cutting in and out.
Oh, sorry. Don't worry about it. All that stuff was said.
I can hear you well. I think it's them there, but I always wonder if they're holding it for